Grüezi miteinander. Mein Name ist Ich leite hier im Kulturama das Marketing und das Ausstellungsteam und bei dieser Funktion mitverantwortlich dafür, dass wir in der Ausstellung «Wie ist denn da» auch eine Kunstinstallation haben. Es ist die Kunstinstallation von Entschuldigung, auf Hochdeutsch, tut mir leid. Es ist eine Kunstinstallation, die heißt Daily Bread. Sie ist von Gregg, ich habe vergessen zu fragen, Gregg Segal.
Gregg Segal.
Yes. Wunderbar, Gregg Segal. Er ist von Kalifornien und heute bei uns zu Gast. Und er hat diese Fotoserie gemacht, Daily Bread. Und zwar zeigt er damit Jugendliche von ganz verschiedenen Ländern mit ihrem Essen über eine Woche. Also es ist sozusagen ein Tagebuch, das er dann auf einmal fotografiert. Und wir sehen hier diese Jugendlichen mit ihrem Essen von einer Woche. Und ich werde jetzt ihm auf Englisch ein paar Fragen stellen und du wirst übersetzen, wenn das notwendig ist. Und anschließend dürfen Sie sehr gerne auch noch Fragen stellen, wenn Sie das möchten. But first I would like to welcome you, Gregg, here at Kulturama. It's a great, great pleasure and honor to meet you.
Thank you, likewise.
Thank you. And first I would like to ask, what fascinates you about food?
Okay. Well, let me just start by saying, are you going to translate, or does everyone speak English pretty well? She's the only one who speaks English? Everyone, but you speak English. Okay, all right. So hopefully they'll understand me. But I did another project a few years ago called 7 Days of Garbage. And for that project, I asked family and friends and neighbors and anyone else I could convince to save their garbage for 1 week and then lie down and be photographed amongst their garbage. So that was the initial idea. And then while I was shooting the garbage, I was struck by how many packages, and this is something you probably were talking about right over here, how much packaging is in all of the garbage that we all produce. And it was very disturbing to see that, and I began to think, well, how is our diet impacted by the revolution in the way that food is produced and consumed? And that was the starting point for this project.
So, can you tell us maybe a little bit more about the idea behind this project, the bread, or maybe also what you find out? It's also kind of a research in a way you did.
Yeah, it's kind of like sociology.
Exactly.
Yeah. And actually I was saying earlier that I think of this project and the garbage project I did as instant archaeology, because it's an instant record of the things we value. But I discovered in shooting this project that, just to start with, there have been many stories about obesity and about the obesity epidemic. And I think the stories often accompany pictures of big greasy hamburgers and piles of French fries, almost to suggest that no obese person ever ate a vegetable. So I think that we have a tendency in the media to oversimplify and generalize about food. And I found that the story of our diet isn't an all or nothing game. You know, it's more complicated than that. And I found in shooting that oftentimes we see diets that are convergent. So people in different parts of the world, because of globalization, are tending to eat more similar foods. So for instance, I photographed a boy in Catania in Sicily, and then another boy in Los Angeles. And they were both eating pizza and hamburgers and white bread and pasta, and it looked like their parents were shopping in the same superstore. So that's one of the things that I discovered.
You shoot in very different countries.
I did, yeah.
So as we can see in the images, a lot of different food. I don't know, is there any favorite country Just speaking of food, just regarding to food.
My personal favorite?
Yes,
food?
maybe. Yes, maybe.
Or
what something special you realized when you were in this country in this image?
Okay. Well, another thing that I discovered was where I'm from in the U.S. It's generally people who are poorer, who don't have a lot of money, who eat a lot of junk food. But when I went to India, I found the opposite to be true. And a medium Domino's pizza in Mumbai costs $13, which for your average Indian is a lot of money. And so one of the girls I photographed here, whose name is Anshal, no picture will come up, but Anshal lives in this 8-foot by 8-foot hut, little, aluminum hut. And her father makes less than $5 a day. And yet, her mother is able to go and buy fresh okra and fresh cauliflower, and she can make a curry, homemade curry, and she makes lentils, and she makes the roti, which is the bread by hand. She kneads the bread and rolls it out and cooks it herself. So her daughter is actually eating a pretty nutritious, wholesome diet. And then you take a middle-class kid in Mumbai, and they have a little more money, and so they can afford to buy the Domino's pizza and the Kentucky Fried Chicken and so forth. And so it's interesting that the story of diet is not a story of haves and have-nots. Because what we're seeing now is there are as many people who are obese as there are undernourished, right? So even the United Nations, I think, is a step behind because they're always looking at undernourishment and they're measuring calories. They're not looking at nutrients, which is what is more important, I think, to focus on.
Maybe just one more thing I'd like to ask. If you would lay down here, what food would we see?
Well, let's see. You'd see a pretty healthy diet. Because I make a point of eating vegetables, and I think that's critical to my health. And it's, having done this project, the one thing that I noticed that's consistent pretty much all over the world is that people are not eating enough greens. Can you guess what % of our calories in the United States come from eating greens, vegetables? Anybody want to guess? What %? 5%. Okay.
11.
What?
11.
11. That's an interesting choice of number. Good guess. Anybody else? 20. That's ambitious. That's really ambitious. We're talking about the United States. So it's less than 1% of our calories come from vegetables in the U.S. And that I think is the story of globalization, is that we're seeing a huge amount of packaging of foods, and there just isn't very much profit for the corporations in selling fruits and vegetables. So you're just not seeing as many vegetables in particular being consumed. So at home, my wife often makes just a big bowl of broccoli. and I photographed my son for this project too. And even though we feed him a pretty good diet, we looked at the picture and we go, wait a minute now. Are we missing some? There was some pea soup, I think we have here. So that was one of the challenges. Is, are people being faithful? Because this is a several-step process, because the kids keep a journal of everything they eat, and then that journal gets handed off to cooks, and those cooks go out and buy all those foods and reproduce those foods, and then we have to look at that journal and compare and make sure we haven't missed anything.
Yep.
And so so it's challenging to make sure that you're honest and faithful.
Of course.
Thank you. You're welcome. Can I also just say that whenever I have an audience, I encourage the viewers, you, to take the Daily Bread Challenge and to ask yourself questions, particularly if you have kids, to have your kids ask the question, how many of the foods you eat come out of the package?
Yes.
And how many of the foods you eat come from the ground, you know, from the farm or picked from the tree. Okay? And of the foods that are packaged, how many ingredients do they have? Do they have more than 5 ingredients? How many of the ingredients can you actually pronounce? Right? And how many colors are in the food that you're eating? Right? If you're eating all white and yellow and brown food, then you're probably missing some important nutrients and vitamins, right? And so if your diet is very colorful, you know, you're getting obviously more nutrition. And how much green is in your diet? And so one of the things that I like about shooting from this perspective, looking down, is that you can quickly see, you know, how healthy someone is just from that snapshot.
Thank you very much for coming here and for this little talk.
Sure.
Chance, so very, very
My
nice.
pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.